And we are live. Welcome back to Aussies taking over the NBA. It is Wednesday, the 8th of July, approximately how many months since we last did one? I think it was 4 months. I got that. Here we go. 12th of the 3rd was the last time we were live.
Wow, so almost 4 months.
It's been a lockdown for the ages.
It's a new world order, my friend.
Yeah.
It's the COVID norm. Just pretty much sitting in your house, doing nothing. No sport, no nothing. It's good. Not really, but it's good.
So for the wider public, it's sort of been a lockdown situation where everyone's in their own homes. But for you, what's been happening?
So post lockdown, I think lockdown really came
during
out.
the lockdown. What happened when you went into lockdown? When it all went over?
I pretty much played Xbox for like 6 weeks straight. Did some
2K?
gardening.
2K?
To play a lot of 2K. Played a lot of 2K. Played a lot of Borderlands 2. Taking it back. Played a lot of Xbox. Watched a lot of TV. Ate a lot of food. Got fat. Now trying to get less fat.
Yeah, working out.
Back working out. Back at the gym. But yeah, no, it was like a long 2 months. And then work kind of kicked back in last month, so June, end of May, June, and now we're kind of full swing back into this weird normal where you're just kind of always looking over your shoulder thinking, have you got it? Have you got it? Have you got it?
Mm.
And now Victorians are back into lockdown because of many reasons. One of those being getting dumb people to guard hotels.
No comment on that. The poor old Victorians are taking the brunt of the heat at the moment.
Yeah, man.
Does it
It's
feel
not their fault.
Like people are just really happy to stick the boot in for some reason? Like everyone's been locked down for too long and they're all just like, right, we need a scandal. We need to stick the boot into something. We're ready to go.
I think it's more the fact that, they had the hardest lockdown out of any other state and the longest, and everyone did the right thing kind of by staying home, and businesses didn't open, they didn't go to pubs, and it was all undone because of one idiot incompetent government put monkeys on the doors of hotels with virus ravaged people, and not only did they bonk them, they took them out for Macca's runs. So
does that just encapsulate humanity though? Really?
it does encapsulate
let's just try and let's just do it. Who cares? No one's gonna know. It's just such humanity in a nutshell. Like, let's just try and get away with it. It's all good.
Yeah, it just encompasses incompetence and
or maybe just Aussies just kind of like it's the Aussie mentality.
I think
we'll be right.
I think we're pretty good, man. I think that the Aussies are probably the most compliant people of their own accord out of anyone. You look at the US, and it's a free for all in terms of virus because no one kind of stays home, and everyone wants to get back to normal life. And then it's a bit of a free for all in the UK. It's a free for all in other countries, and here we kind of all right, we'll lock down, we'll get through it, and then a few bad eggs ruin it for 6 million people. So
you want consequences, man.
The consequences are dire, man. And now there's been cases from Melbourne in the ACT, in New South Wales, and now we're going to be just continually looking over our shoulder for the next month to make sure this thing hasn't spread in other states that people have gone into. But again, it just shows you it's real. People die, makes you sick, spreads really fast. There's really nothing much you can do about it.
Yeah, I think taking it lightly is probably the wrong message to take out of this. And we'll obviously get to the US situation because that'll roll into like what's happening with the NBA. But we've kind of been lucky that we've been able to keep some semblance of normalcy about our society. But I think we were talking about before everything happened, before we went into lockdown, we were saying like it was sort of strange that society, for a society that just kind of gets close, goes out, goes to the pub, let's go and watch this event, that event. to live going, we can't do that anymore. We'll just, it's all right.
Yeah,
We'll just
man.
stay home. It's all good. Like, we don't need to do that. And then for the codes themselves, like their livelihood hinging on just like, what can we do to keep this going? Like, we need to find a way to keep this going. Like can we do this? Can we do that? Can we can we just run it with no fans? Can we have like no people there? We've got bubbles going on. Like, what can we do? It's kind of been like a surreal feeling because of the real world consequences, like as you say about those, like the Victoria situation, just one little thing of just Aussies being like, it's all right, it's all good, like we could get away with this, and then suddenly like there's another outbreak, another pandemic. Does it feel almost like it's on the verge of like that kind of post-apocalyptic feeling of like I think we had the feeling like when we were going into this of like, man, society could break down, like this could be it, like for whereas, which was a bit like, it turned out that was a bit too full on the dial. Like we pulled it back to a little bit of like,
Look, society has irrevocably changed.
I think so, yeah.
I think society in certain countries obviously is worse than others. The US being one of the worst countries affected in terms of the societal shift and how many people are disenfranchised with the fact that they don't live a normal life. They're not able to afford to go into a lockdown and afford basic necessities like food and shelter. Whereas here, everyone's just like, oh yeah, the government just gave everyone $550 a week if you lost your job. And then if you didn't lose your job, they gave your company $1,500 a fortnight to keep you in your job.
Mm.
And that is to everyone. Everyone who lost their job gets paid more. Everyone, so it's kind of like, all right, there's a bit of a safety net there. Whereas in the US, it's like no one got their checks. Hardly anyone got stimulus checks. Like they don't know where half these people are in the world of like, it's just there's so many homeless people. There's just,
it's like none of these people are really connected to the lifeblood of their society.
No, the society is not connected. One of the fantastic things was that in New South Wales, they essentially just said, all right, homeless people, you're going to live in the hotel for the next however long.
Mm.
And so there was no homeless. The homeless is completely, and now it's a post-COVID world. They're like, oh, we can't have these homeless people out on the streets. Just we can't have it. So we're just going to give them houses. So all the our homeless people are now staying in hotels until they get houses. So there is zero homelessness, which is amazing for a society to do. But again, we live in a kind of a very compliant country where everyone says, oh, jump, and we kind of say, oh yeah, how high? We do things because we're safe. And now you look at the US, man. The US is not a compliant society because they don't feel safe. No one feels safe. Everyone's looking around. The virus is just a manifesto of, or a mirror of their society. You're just looking around the corner until something gets you. And you can see that in their sport over there, is that there's such a disparity between Patrick Mahomes getting paid what 500 million US for 10 years, and the fact that could feed hundreds of thousands of people during the pandemic, but that it's more important that dude gets $500 million for throwing a pigskin.
It's pretty nice. Pretty mad player though.
Mad player, don't get me wrong, sick player.
Like I like to, I think about this sort of thing, but at the same time, like when you connect to the cerebral aspect of the NBA in particular, not necessarily NFL, but the NBA, there is so much just like pumping up the players of the, they did all this charity work. They gave all their money to these things. He's down there giving out meals at Thanksgiving, et cetera, et cetera. And obviously we're in Australia, we're not in the US, so we don't have we're not exactly completely connected to what's happening day to day. But at the same time, this is where I think now it's time to kind of see the fact that these players should be giving back some of what they earn to society. Like they earn a lot of money, but at the same time, it's an issue in itself. You know what I mean? Like it's like a ball rolls downhill. And you can't just go, oh, well, it should roll uphill. Like, well, why can't it roll uphill? Because, that's just how it works. Like, you can't, you can't escape that. But at the same time, I think these changes to the whole world kind of everyone's scrambling around. Like you're saying, the homelessness issue. Like everybody's scrambling around to get these solutions to happen. Oh, like, and it's kind of not necessarily like a foolproof finished article change to society. It's kind of like we're just shifting the puzzle piece here, moving
Mm.
this one over there. You know, when society gets back to normal and people don't have the disease, like, you know, they're going to move that way, they're going to come this way, and like the homeless people might go out on the street. Like, it's such a strange feeling to be living in a world that's kind of moving in different ways.
It's
And
just
like you just take for granted how like sport was just there. It was just there for everything, man. Like you were just like you could set your watch to it. You just be like, all right, who's playing today? We've got this game. Ooh, I'm going to tune into these highlights. I'm going to watch this team because I like the Grizzlies. Well, I don't like the Grizzlies, but you know, ooh, I want to watch the Suns because they're playing the Lakers. This would be an interesting game. Like that's at 2 o'clock. Sweet. Like now it's just been like I don't like at the first week I opened the NBA up like 4 times, just thinking, sweet, I'll check what the oh wait, no, it's not on. And now I'm like, I've deleted the NBA app off my phone because I'm just like, oh, there's no games. So what's the point of having it there? Like,
yeah.
you know,
I
I'll get
think
it back when there's games coming up. But it's such a strange feeling, man. That you could
here's
just, you know, you could set your watch by sport and your lifestyle really revolved around sport. You take that away, and it's like, oh, what's going on? This is just bizarre. So weird.
I booked a dinner for next Saturday, and that will be the first time I will have eaten at a restaurant since February.
Yeah.
So that's nuts.
Mm.
That's just like not gone out for. I've not had an alcoholic beverage outside my house since February. Like it's just you're just thinking
It's
about it. This is
crazy.
just like, and this isn't like, oh yeah, this is getting back to normal. This is like, well, I better go and have one now because look at what happened in Victoria. That just may happen here again,
Mm.
and I'm going to be stuck at home for the next 2.5 months playing Xbox again. So
You could be into that. You know, for me, my work basically went nuts. So I was doing 12-hour days. So it kind of went from me being like, why do I have to be the one at work to being like, you know what, I'm actually pretty happy that I've got a job and, you know, just really sinking my life into this job to make it better. But at the same time, like on the back end of this, like everything has changed now. Like it's really sort of still a strange feeling.
it is, and you know what, we miss sport. I miss, the anticipation of something coming. And that's the other thing as well. There's no
Mm.
anticipation for anything. It's just like, oh, how many people have died today? Or how many people have tested positive today? Then they're like, oh, sweet, the NBL is 2-3 months away. NBA is now, we're ramping back up to October, and, some things are happening, and the drafts happened, and we're interested in these teams, and, we should have watched the finals. But look, I take it that they're trying to create the rest of the season. They're trying to have closure on this season, which I think is noble, but I also think is kind of fool's gold because, as we've seen, even under the strictest circumstances, mistakes happen. Things slip through, and then bam, the virus rips through 50 people, and it's all closed down, and everyone went back into this thing, and it just, it's just another wave of disappointment, and just more people becoming disenfranchised with it. And
Yeah,
maybe now,
it feels like at the start it was like, well, look, we're ready for the lockdown, we'll do anything. But then after a month, it was just like, don't lock us down again, man. Like, you know, that like
yeah,
that real vibe. You could feel that vibe of just like, I don't want to be locked down again, man. But at the same time, like, just lock it down for the rest of the year, the whole thing. Like, why does society need to move this way? You know, like, why do we have to keep doing this? Like, it's better to be safe than sorry. But then again, when so much money is at stake, and
mm,
the strangest part is like, we'll move on to like the NBA at large, but like, what does it really matter that this season finishes?
it doesn't.
Does it matter?
It doesn't at all. Like, there's absolutely zero consequence in this series, like this series and this season finishing. It
Mm.
doesn't mean anything. It really wasn't going at a million miles an hour before COVID, if you know what I mean.
Mm.
Like, it wasn't like, oh yeah, it was kind of just post All Star. We were getting in, the teams were kind of finalizing, and the top 8 was kind of getting worked out. And now it's kind of like it's going to be a scramble. Giannis didn't pick up a basketball for 6 weeks because he couldn't leave his house.
Mm.
Like, it's not the preparation. It's going to be bad basketball. It's going to be terrible to watch.
Mm.
absolute like garbage. A lot of players aren't going to be there. They're not taking KD, Kyrie. They're not going. The Nets are pretty much just a shell of a team that is turning up. A lot of other players have opted out. A lot of other players can't make it because they've tested positive for coronavirus. Gordon Hayward has to leave the bubble because he's expecting the birth of his child, so he's not even going to be there for 4 weeks. It's just
Yeah, it's
what is the point?
yeah. So like when it first started, right, and then the ideas are always like, how can we make this work? Like I was saying before, like how can we make this happen? Like so all of the thinking and the ideas have gone into like how can we salvage this, you know what I mean? And it's a thought process that it's always going to end one way, try and make the season be finished off. And I don't know if like at the end of the day, like we're looking at the TBT or whatever that's on now, and you're just like the amount of shit you got to go through just to play in that is crazy. And the other thing I wrestle with too is if there's no fans there, then what's the point?
Oh, I completely agree. If there's no one watching these games, and it's almost like a scrimmage, half the teams have an amazing home record because of the fans. Like Philly's a fans team. Fans get there, they roll them up. You can feel it lift. You can hear that on TV, and you see the players lift. And then they go on the road and get trounced by Atlanta. It's like, this is ridiculous. This doesn't make any sense. And it's kind of going to be like, well, it's kind of the team that's most consistent in their home and away record, doesn't really get affected by, and that's really none of the teams. It's probably the Bucks and the Raptors as being the best two in the East. Maybe the Lakers in the West. At this point in time, I don't think you can pick a winner out of any of the teams. No one knows what's going to happen, and it's just a bit pointless, really.
Yeah.
In the big scheme of things, and I think we should probably briefly and very condensedly touch on the Black Lives Matter part of the NBA and coming back, which I think is very important for the NBA. It's very important for wider American society, I think, as well. And hopefully this gives a forum and a voice to that in a commercial sense where it's on TV, it's more out there, but also gives them closure around that. So maybe that's a good thing of why it's going ahead. And, maybe there needs to be focus away from all the negatives in society, because without sport, let's be real, there's nothing really to focus on. You kind of have just the negatives. You have the media, the news, just like, oh, this person got killed, this person. And you know what? 364 days a year with sport, it's all drowned out in, oh yeah, what's my team doing today? Because what's more important to most people is who they follow, who they cheer, who they barrack for. They're not going to worry about the news, but it's just negativity. So hopefully this brings some positivity, brings a voice and platform back to the Black Lives Matter movement. And, I think Adam Silver is probably one of the best general managers of any sporting code in the world, and is a very liberal guy. And
hey, man, David Gallup's pretty awesome. Sorry, I couldn't say that without laughing my balls off.
There is not one Australian general manager that is
Todd Greenberg's pretty good, bro.
Oh man,
nah, but you're right. Like I think Adam Silver has handled this really well. He's such an astute kind of guy, and for someone who kind of looks like a robot and kind of like a corpse, like when he speaks, he's just so calculated and like so good at delivering a message, and you kind of go, I listen to what this guy says. He just doesn't give the appearance of someone who, he doesn't need the fanfare, he doesn't need the the charisma. He just like delivers it in such a concise way. But I think you're right. Like I think a lot of these players, obviously, it's a big sport with a lot of connection to that Black Lives Matter movement, and it's important, right? And the people that aren't going to play, like I'm like, yeah, if you don't want to play, like definitely, like I like when people take their own cause and they stick by it and they stick to it and they go for it. I'm like, good on you. Like I'm not a person who gets upset at other people. Like I can go, if you want to get upset, get upset. If you want to be pro Black Lives Matter, be pro Black Lives Matter. Like, great. Like, everyone can exist. Like, the toxicity and the animosity to me is just like, still is like, what's the point? Like, what's the point of
Yeah.
you getting angry at that guy? And then at the end of the day, like, you all go home and you just, you rage into your dinner, and it's like, what's the point? Like, why not just live your life and experience what's happening and then understand what's happening? But that's been the only sort of like the oddity. Like, I can't take the whole conflicted nature of all this stuff. Like, that just drives me to just go, you know what? I don't need to be connected to that. Like, I prefer to just live my life and what I'm doing rather than be connected to the whole animosity aspect of what's happening. But good on those guys for supporting Black Lives Matter. I think they have a huge like responsibility because they are prominent black athletes to stick up for their community. And I think they
Yes.
do. I think we don't see it here in Australia, but I think they do a lot for their
Oh, they do.
community.
They do, and but it's not just their community directly associated with their organization. I think it's got to be a wider, view. It's got to, LeBron James is probably one of the most quiet achievers. He doesn't go out of his way to big note himself. He's probably more like an Australian philanthropist than an American philanthropist. He just gets shit done, you know what I mean?
For
And
sure.
doesn't go and say, yeah, I donate money here. It's about basketball with him. It's about the game and, helping people move forward in their life and, putting kids through college, African-American kids through college. That's his hobby. That's what he likes. That's his affirmative action.
It's like he leads, right? And does things, and then everyone's like looking at his like trail. You know what I mean? Like, he's not someone who's there and always is just like, look at me, like look at what I'm doing. In the moment, look at what I'm doing. He's always like, I was doing that 3 days ago. Now I'm over here doing this, and everyone's like, the following's always like right behind him, which is what I really like. I as a Warriors fan, like, it was the animosity I felt towards that guy for like 5 years. Now I've kind of gone through a cleansing of just like, you know what, that's actually pretty awesome. But like, as a Warriors fan, just like that rivalry, fuck this guy, I hate this guy, I can't stand him, like picking out every little negative thing you hate about him. But now, this season that he's had, like I said to you before we went on air, like, he's really the one that's going to be robbed this season. Like, with the season finishing, I think he's had the most to lose because of just how outstanding he's been this season. But at the same time, is, like, in the grand scheme of what's happening, does that matter? Like, it's just, there's so much just like.
Here's a good segue and probably a feel good story getting off the political aspect of it. The 10-part series, the Jordan documentary.
Great documentary though.
Man, glued to my seat every 2 hours every week just watching that. It was fantastic. It was such a good idea to release that during lockdown, giving people something to look at and enjoy. And it really does spark the debate and the great debate between LeBron James, Michael Jordan, and you could probably say even Wilt Chamberlain. There's four there. Kareem. There's four there that are really in the GOAT conversation, and I think Jordan was just a different kind of athlete. LeBron is an athlete. LeBron is a pure basketball player. But Jordan was just an animal. Like, just getting on the drink, gambling, smoking, everything to win.
How many times were they just smoking cigars in that? And you just be like, bro, it's like game 47 of a season. What the hell are you doing?
Just like, I'll have a beer and a cigar post. Could you imagine LeBron having a beer after he's in his bloody cryo chamber, recuperating your body, and there's Jordan just having a beer and a cigar after the game? He's like,
crazy, man.
Different times.
Dude, what was up with Jordan's eyes button in that documentary, man? Every time they showed those close-up shots of him, I just kept looking at his eyes going, dude, like, oh, are you sick or something? What's up with that?
Well, yellow eyes do technically mean jaundice, which is
I don't know. I Googled it and everyone was like, does he have jaundice? Tune in at 6 o'clock. And I'm like, I won't be tuning in.
No, I don't think he has jaundice. It's probably just some sort of genetic difference with him. But But yeah, he kind of looked like he was high most of the time.
Yeah,
So it's
that's
like,
too. That's how strange is that too in our society where there's like the war on drugs is still definitely raging, but like they were probably all like smoking weed. Like I've listened to some podcasts where I think it's Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson. Like I don't know why that didn't just come to me straight away. Um, and they're both just like, yeah, we just got high all the time, man. Like, so what? But that was when drugs were outlawed. Like, how strange is it now that it's part of their culture because it's legal? Like, they can just do whatever they want. People can get high anywhere else. Like,
well, this is ridiculous. In one state, you can smoke weed, but in another, that gets you 25 years in jail if you've caught with it 3 times. Um,
such a strange aspect of that. But
disjointed society.
like back to the point that I wanted to make. Like, it's strange to watch a high profile TV show and not have to be like, was that guy high? Like that's weird. Like what's up with that? You were just like, who cares if they're high? Like, who gives a shit? But dude, how weird was like the shots of Scottie Pippen in that college shirt? Like really, really low profile, looking up at Scottie Pippen, like real close into his hands. His hands looked like freak hands, man. It was so bizarre watching those shots, man. Like he just looked like his hands were the size of dinner plates.
They probably are.
Yeah,
They're probably like
nuts. Just
yeah.
I love that whole aspect of Scotty too. Like just the unsung guy. You know, I usually gravitate towards the kind of unsung heroes. They're my heroes. Are the kind of non-outspoken, the guy who let the game do their talking.
It's the Scottie Pippens and the Klay Thompsons, really the unsung dynastic heroes. I would say that would probably be the two, and the fact that Dennis Rodman was just a lunatic was just brilliant.
And that like just taking a sabbatical, just taking 2 weeks off. And then like
he just goes and wrestles in the WWE and gets paid $250,000. He gets fined like 30 grand, just comes back the next day. Just like, oh, that was Dennis.
Don't you look at those sorts of things, right? And just think like as an organizer of men, you know, to get it like go a bit deeper into coaching, like as an organizer in men, you kind of like have to let these people do that. Like as a coach, like the reason why Phil Jackson was such a great coach is because he knew how to manage people. Like he knew how to manage Jordan. He knew how to get the best out of him. Like I know they were like on the documentary, like, like we didn't want him to go. We didn't like we were like, what are you doing, Dennis? And then it came down to like, I have to do this. I'm gonna do it. You're just gonna let me do it. Like too bad. And they were like, oh, reluctantly. Oh no. But I reckon Phil Jackson would have known, man. He was just like, oh, okay, like I have to let this guy do that. Just showed you, like I thought some of the great parts of that documentary was like just looking at Phil Jackson, the way he managed these people in these situations and scenarios, and so many high profile egos. Horace Grant, unsung hero, you know, Rodman, Luke Longley. We should say Luke Longley, should he have gotten more airtime?
He probably should. I mean, it is The Last Dance, and he was kind of an integral part of The Last Dance. You know, I think he averaged 11.9 points per game in the final season, that 98 season, in a team which averaged between 80 and 85 a game. So, you know, that's his starting center, starting big man. And Bill Wellington got more kind of airtime than Luke did. So
yeah, with his poker machine in the background, how good was that? But I think I remember there was about 4 dunks, maybe, or like 1 or 2 layups. You know, okay, on one side, I'm thinking, okay, you're in a team with Jordan, Pippen, and Rodman. Luke Longley a solid 12 points a game, I think, in that little stretch of 3 years. How many crunch time big moments did Luke Longley really get in that time?
0.
None.
Oh, no, sorry. No. Hold on. He hit that mid-range jumper game 5 of that series.
I think there was one game in there where they were about to kind of allude to, you know, Luke Longley had a real effect on this game, but then they just kind of glossed over it. And that was the part where I was like, oh man, like they could have dragged something out about Luke Longley, blah blah blah. The other thing too was like reading Australian media. Everyone got so upset about it. Luke Longley deserved more time, and I was just like, God, you guys are really desperate for column inches, aren't you? Holy shit!
It's a long way to Esperance, my friend. It's a long way to Esperance.
But if you listen, like I listened to that Hoops podcast with Hoops Capital, shout out Sydney Kings Hoops Capital podcast if you want to listen to about the Sydney Kings. And that dude is so just down to earth, like just a down to earth dude. And that's part of his allure also. And again, the same sort of thing, like I gravitate towards the personalities that are unsung heroes. They let what they do the talking as opposed to talk. You know, and I love Jordan anyway. Like Jordan was the ultimate, you know,
Showman.
opposite end of the spectrum in terms of that to being the most humble guy. But at the same time, I still love, you know, I still sort of think Luke Longley could have got a little bit of airtime. Surely there was a 20-minute stretch. Then like the Steve Kerr part for me was just a bit like, wow, Steve Kerr got like 40 minutes talking about his dad. Like I kind of get how that ties in, but with this
Yeah,
Jordan's dad dying, but I was like, if we really needed 40 minutes on Steve Kerr and his dad,
I
it still was
completely.
fascinating. Like hearing
Oh,
about how Steve Kerr his dad was the professor in, I think it was Beirut,
yeah.
and he got bombed. It was, it's just like, oh, imagine that. That'd be
He got
brutal.
He got gunned
Gunned
down.
down? Yeah. Did he get gunned down or do you? Yeah, I think they
Yeah,
came in and shot him. Some fake
yeah.
students dressed up as. Just to think about that, like as Australians, just to go, you know what? That guy's a professor. We're gonna go and kill him. Like just think about that on a raw level. You're just like, why? What does that
It's
really mean? What does that make? Why does that make a difference?
or a dude taking a nap on his way home from his mate's place just gets shot and killed.
Mm,
And Jordan's dad. It's
yeah,
kind
I
of just
know.
it's
Guns, man.
Damn it! That's why we don't have them here.
Yeah, I know. So happy that we don't have.
So easy. It's just like, oh, there's no guns.
But so do you reckon Luke Longley should have got more airtime?
A little bit more. I think he's probably a bit bigger role in the 98 season, probably not so much in the 95, 96. Yeah. So a little bit more time, but you know what? It was a great documentary. Happy to watch it. And I hope they come out with a Kobe one. That would be good.
Mm. Were they? Because
they had a camera team follow him his complete last season, which was a complete dud of a season.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, you know, get a bit of farewell in there and
not like, you know, it wouldn't have had the, I guess, yeah, nah. One of the real things in that Jordan documentary was like how much just amazing footage they had. Like him playing coins with that weird curly haired poodle guy. Like, you were just like, who the hell was sitting around with a camera just being like, in 1994, going like,
it was one of his security guards.
yeah,
and just like,
just some of the footage, you were like, who the hell was shooting this footage in 92? Like, what a genius. Like, what the hell? You know what I mean? It was crazy. So I wonder, like, man, how much superfluous footage would have happened of Kobe's career.
yeah.
I guess taking a look, like taking a step back from the big moments of finals, of you know the real media presence of what his career was. I just wonder how much footage there was. But yeah, that was one big thing in that documentary. I'm just like, where did you guys get this footage? Like, what the hell? We're just walking down the tunnel, like, of, you know, game 32 of the 1992 season, and they're talking to Jordan, and he's walking in this way, and you're just like, genius, man.
It just shows you he was the most coveted sportsman probably in history.
Mm.
I think there's probably no bigger name in the history of sport. The only other name would be Tiger Woods. I think the superfluous American athlete. You could probably put Woods up with Jordan in terms of names.
Mm.
But there's only probably 5 people in the world that have ever been that you know that everyone knows their name, and Jordan's one of them as terms of sports star. So
who else you got? Tiger Woods.
I got Woods. I got Messi. I got Ronaldo.
Yeah.
And one more.
Ricky Ponting.
No cricketers. No cricketers.
Virat Kohli, surely.
Yeah, but that's in India, man.
Yeah. That's per capita. Yeah. Like he's known per capita because of all the Indians that love him. But yeah, so it was a solid documentary. It was great. It was a bit of a shame that Luke Longley didn't get an appearance, but at the same time, knowing his personality, you know, I know kind of why. I'm looking at that going, yeah, I know why he didn't, because that's just not the kind of guy he is.
Just not his dude.
He tells a story about how he got injured surfing. From memory, I think he like was just body surfing and blew his shoulder out right when Jordan was like me and him were like developing a partnership, blah blah blah. He just went out for a surf, blew his shoulder out, was out for like the rest of a season, one of those seasons. And Jordan like gave him the cold shoulder. So I'm thinking maybe that might have had something to do with it. Like he blew his relationship with Jordan doing something like that. And I guess Jordan's a pretty ruthless dude. After watching the documentary, we're just like, God damn, this guy was ruthless.
Look, can we also say that their suits were hilarious?
Dude, how bad was the tailoring? It was like guys that were just like, we don't know how to make suits for these guys. Like, okay, guys, let's try this. And I was just like, dude, what? Like the shirt looks down to the jacket's down to his knees. Like, what? No, bring it up. Like, proportion these. Like, it's like they didn't know how to do it. But how many times in these documentaries in like the 80s and 90s did you just see like, we just whipped something up and they just, we didn't expect people to see this. Like, it's just, but now like society's so calculated and tailored. Everyone knows how to, like, the R&D goes into getting the right shot for people and stuff like that. It's nuts. We should move on from lockdown and on to some big news. Ryan Brokoff signing for Philly.
It's good.
Huge, man.
It's huge. Love it. No, I'm glad that he got the gig. They definitely needed a sharpshooter. Whether he'll get a lot of game time, deep playoffs, probably not. But hey, 6'7" knockdown wing, play a little bit of defense is definitely warranted, and hopefully you get some sort of extended contract out of this, and stays in the NBA. Still no Bolden sighting in any NBA teams, so that's going to be interesting.
He was playing G League, wasn't he?
Bolden? No. He played. He had the Phoenix contract. Hasn't played since the 10-day Phoenix.
That's right. Yeah.
So there's no 10-day contracts available for the rest of the season.
Which makes sense, obviously.
Yeah, it makes sense. And a lot of the G Leaguers are coming back to Australia to play in the NBL, which is also good for the local league, I think. Gives us a little bit more prestige, gives us a little bit more power in the coming years. I don't see probably the G League starting up again in the foreseeable years. I just don't see it, man. There's just not enough money for them to play in a bubble. And so, yeah, I just think that it's going to kind of be an NBA bubble land. And we can go in further discussions over the next coming weeks to countdown of the season about why that is. But essentially, the virus has mutated. It's become more infectious. And the world as we know it is over.
Feel like I get transported back to May.
You have.
March. Try March.
You have. But yeah, big news broke off.
Yeah, massive news. I'm sorry. I'm just looking back at the contract details. Elton Brown announced the signing of Brokoff, but terms were not disclosed. So it's fully guaranteed DLA.
Fully guaranteed for the rest of the season. I mean, you can't do it. You can't do it 10 days. So guaranteed for the rest of the season. It's good. It'll be interesting, man. I'm looking forward to it. Countdown is 23 days to kick off.
You know what? Like, I think one of the few guys this season where you watched him and you were just like, some team just pick this guy up. We have to be watching this guy. We have to keep watching this guy. Just plays so freely. Like, it was just a travesty, man, really, that he kind of, I get it. Like, Dallas kind of had to waive with the huge roster people that they had. They kind of had to waive him. Like, if they're going to sort of, keep Hardaway in there and retool their roster, like, they kind of had to waive him. But at the same time, like, he was one guy where you're just like, this guy has to play in this league. Like, it's stupid that this guy's not playing in the league. So I'm so happy for him. Like, I think on a connecting to Aussie NBA players on an emotional level, I'm like, yes, good. And it's not even about like, oh, he's on Philly, that's even better. How good's that? Like, it's just about good. Like, he deserved to stay in the league, man. Which is kind of not really what I feel about Bolden. Like, as much as I like Bolden, and I do like Bolden, I didn't get that feeling of just like, yeah, man, like he deserves to be in this team, like in this league. Not the same as Brokoff for me, anyway.
Yeah, I think he did his dash when he walked out on the Australian team. I think that in the
A bit
eyes of the
sour.
NBA, just like, well, this guy's not really committed and can't commit and has a bit of an ego problem. So we don't have time for that. And you're not that high profile enough player to have time for that. So probably not going to get a run. But hey, man, with coronavirus, you never know what's going to happen around the
No.
corner. Stay safe and stay clean, and you could get a contract. But we should end up on the crap bubble. Moving
The
forward to
stink bubble.
the stink bubble.
So
The
there's going
eight
to be two
teams.
bubbles because I got to admit, like, as soon as all this happened, I just stopped, like,
The,
caring, really. I just went, look, whatever. I don't see why this should come back. Everyone should just, take a year off, come back in 2021 and start the season, at the end of 2021. It's kind of panning, it's still kind of panning out that way for me. Like, this all feels like very just like, we've got to put something together, guys. Like, let's just try and get something to happen. It's just like, just end it. 2021, come back at the end of 2021 and start
yeah,
a new season. But
just
obviously, that's
too much
ludicrous
money
not
at
to
stake. Yeah, too much money at stake. So 22 teams head to Orlando, 8 teams head to Chicago. Bottom 8 teams, mostly from the East, head to Chicago. I don't think a lot of the stars in those teams are going to play. I think it's going to be very much a second string team. But it's also going to be interesting about how many players they bring outside the starting roster or the 15 roster, because you get a couple of injuries. How do you replace them? You can't call people up from the G League on two-way contracts. So it'll be interesting to see how they manage that in the games that they do. But yeah, I don't even know why they're sending 8 teams that weren't going to make the playoffs to Chicago for why? What is the point? It's
Feels
kind
like
of just
tack on some more stuff.
yeah, it just feels like, oh, let's just oblige our TV sponsors and try and get some people in these markets to watch their teams play, and kind of just really pointless at the end of it.
So, in terms of deserving teams in the bubble, what are the teams that you think deserve to be in the bubble?
I think the teams that are there deserve to be there. I think they really just cut the fat out of the guys that had no statistical probability of making the playoffs. So yeah, there'll be no Detroit, so there'll be no Thon. There'll be no Cavs, no Atlanta. Teams that just weren't going to make it. And we get the teams that have a shot of making the playoffs and potentially having some sort of run, but most of them are from the West, and I think the top 10 from the East. It was 12 from the West, 10 from the East, and we got a good mix of the potentials of what can be. But again, I think anything's possible. Having this much disruptive time off with no kind of togetherness. Anyone can win it at this stage. I really think that's possible.
Man. It's gonna be such a mess.
It's going to be terrible to watch.
And the amount of infections, the first thing I see when I looked up that Ryan Brokoff was just Adam Silver being like, admittedly 14 people have COVID and it's a risk, and you're just like, oh, just do we need to do this? It's so just let's just try and make something happen, guys. And admittedly, to go back, the NBA at the moment, the NRL seem to have pulled that off. One of the leagues where this season I thought, they're not playing. There's no way they can make that happen. They seem to have just pulled it off and just been like, you know what? I think they had one scare.
Aiden Tolman. Yeah. Aiden
and
Tolman.
they even managed that where there was just no frills, just right, Friday game, now Monday, do, carry on. And I don't know how logistically the NBA, so much goes into the NBA. Maybe it's just too big of a behemoth to just be plow on. Just keep plowing on. Who cares if people dropping like flies, getting COVID and having to leave? Just plow on. I just don't see that.
It's because it's a league that is so rich with money, where the NRL is literally the week by week finance team. If they don't get that TV deal next week, they're probably going to fall over. So,
but admittedly, I've been impressed with how they've done it. That,
yeah,
for a league that
well.
I'm not that fond of. I kind of went that's actually a really good way to handle it. Like they've had very minimal sort of fuss, very minimal, but I guess different country too. Like
Yeah.
you have to take into account the US situation and what's happening. 100,000, 130,000 deaths, I think now at the moment.
Nearly up to 140.
Fuck, it's just like, guys, take a step back, chill out for another 8 months, and then think about coming back. I don't know.
It's ramping up.
I'm just glad you and me don't have to make the decisions. We're just kind of sitting here scrambling around to make content. So
that's it, mate. What are we going to come back with over the next couple of weeks? We're going to come back with some previews, final roster spots with teams Aussies are in, and do a bit of a breakdown of the first 8-game series, because I think everyone plays 8 games before they're seeded for the playoffs. Yes.
yeah, I know it's
Yes.
just how are we gonna know? You know what I mean? Like really,
we could produce all this content and then like a day before, like, nah, everyone's got COVID.
It's over. It could all end. That's the other thing too, man. Trying to make this content is just like, yeah, like how good is this gonna be? It's off. And yeah, you know, like making content like the other thing too is, you know, listening to the like 5 or 6 different sort of NBA things that I've just stopped listening to it because it's the same shit being recycled the entire time.
Yeah, I don't.
And I've been thinking about that. Like you and I, obviously, we're not the highest tier content creators, and we can admit that. Like for them, I just think that's their job and that's their life, and it's just like
soulless.
what an awful situation to be in. Like to have to do that. You know what I mean? And I don't mean that as like a derogatory term, awful. It's just like such a like just rinse, like squeezing the wet sponge of content out. You're just like, oh. What just an awful situation, man. Like and that's part of it where you're like, oh, this sucks.
That's it, mate. We can just go and have a shit talk because we haven't actually
just talking shit.
Been on for 4 months. But I think we're gonna jump back on the content bandwagon as though the games are starting August 1st. So we will come back in the next week.
Yeah, we'll come back next week. We'll do a bit of a preview of what's happening.
Preview the teams, preview the Aussies, give you a sense of where everyone can end up and how these playoffs can kind of unfold. But remember to like, share, and subscribe.
Yes, all the socials. Every time, like it's been 4 months this side. Yeah, up that side. Yeah, like, share, and subscribe on YouTube and Facebook. Facebook's kind of dead, and then these will go up on SoundCloud, so you can listen to us back on iTunes. I'm sure people that have subscribed to us on iTunes and Podcast Addict will be ding in their thing, and they'll be like, they're back. Like what?
Crazy. It's been so long. Yeah. So yeah, we'll put a bit of a Facebook revival together starting game time. But we'll be here. We'll be watching. We haven't got much else to do. And it hopefully is better than what we expect.
Yep.
All right, guys.
Alrighty. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Take it easy.
Peace.
And